akan diikuti dengan diskusi dengan tema peningkatan efisiensi dan pencegahan korupsi dalam transformasi pengadaan publik. Pertama-tama, perkenankan saya menyampaikan apresiasi yang sebesar-besarnya kepada LKPP maupun IAPI yang selalu membuka pintunya untuk berdiskusi dan berkolaborasi dalam mendorong pengadaan yang lebih efektif dan efisien. Selain itu, kepada Bappenas, khususnya Sekretariat Open Government Indonesia, yang selalu memberikan ruang bagi ide-ide untuk mendorong tata kelola pemerintahan yang lebih transparan dan akuntabel. Perpanjangan penandatanganan MoU hari ini menjadi salah satu contoh konkret kolaborasi yang bisa dilakukan oleh pemerintah dan kelompok masyarakat sipil untuk menjawab permasalahan di sektor pengadaan. Sebagaimana kita baca, dengar dari berita, pengadaan barang dan jasa merupakan sektor yang rentan sekali dikorupsi. Data KPK menyebutkan 40% kasus korupsi yang ditangani terkait dengan pengadaan barang dan jasa. Padahal jika kita lihat di sisi lain, pengadaan merupakan bagian dari proses pemenuhan pelayanan publik kepada masyarakat. Jika kita mengacu ke datanya LKPP, di tahun 2021, besaran anggaran belanja pengadaan pada 2021 secara nasional mencapai 1.106 triliun atau sekitar 46% dari total belanja nasional. Jumlah ini tentu tidak sedikit, dan jika digunakan untuk kepentingan masyarakat dan pelayanan publik, tentu hasilnya akan sangat baik. Dan tantangan ini tentu tidak bisa dijawab hanya oleh pemerintah, atau hanya oleh masyarakat sipil, atau hanya oleh penegak hukum gitu ya, tapi perlu peran dari berbagai stakeholder. Tiap stakeholder memainkan perannya dengan kapasitasnya masing-masing. Dengan demikian diharapkan mampu untuk mengakselerasi reformasi pengadaan publik sehingga anggaran yang dikeluarkan dapat berkontribusi positif terhadap kepentingan warga. Hari ini tentu menjadi salah satu contoh bagaimana kolaborasi itu terjadi, bagaimana LKPP memainkan perannya, ICW memainkan perannya, begitu juga IAPI memainkan perannya dalam hal yang sama, yaitu tujuannya untuk mendorong pengadaan yang lebih efektif, efisien, transparan, dan akuntabel. Akhir kata, saya ucapkan terima kasih kepada seluruh pihak yang telah berpartisipasi hingga kegiatan ini bisa terselenggara. Demikian yang bisa saya sampaikan. Mohon maaf karena tidak bisa hadir langsung di tengah-tengah Bapak dan Ibu. Tentu hal ini tidak akan mengurangi hikmatnya acara siang hari ini. Terima kasih atas perhatian Bapak dan Ibu. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Beri tepuk tangan untuk Bapak Boga dan Ibu Siti Juliandari atas sambutannya. Baik Bapak Ibu sekalian, kita masuk ke acara berikutnya, yaitu penandatanganan nota kesepahaman antara LKPP, IAPI, dan juga ICW. Untuk itu kami mengundang perwakilan dari ketiga organisasi tersebut. Yang pertama adalah Ibu Sarah Sadika selaku PLT Sekretaris Utama Deputi Bidang Pengembangan dan Strategi serta Kebijakan LKPP. Lalu yang kedua Bapak Sony Sumarsono, Ketua DPP Ikatan Ahli Pengadaan Indonesia, dan yang ketiga Bapak Agus Sundaryanto, Koordinator Indonesia Corruption Watch, untuk maju ke depan menandatangani nota kesepahaman bersama. Dipersilakan Bapak Ibu untuk menandatangani nota kesepahaman 3 lembaga. Yang pertama dari Lembaga Kebijakan Pengadaan Barang dan Jasa Pemerintah, diwakili oleh Ibu Sarah Sadika selaku Sekretaris Utama Deputi Bidang Pengembangan Strategi dan Kebijakan LKPP. Lalu ada Indonesia Corruption Watch, diwakili oleh Koordinator Bapak Agus Sunaryanto, dan yang ketiga Bapak Sony Sumarsono selaku Ketua DPP Ikatan Ahli Pengadaan Indonesia. Baik, mungkin bisa diangkat Bapak Ibu. Oke, beri tepuk tangan untuk kita semua, dan untuk penandatanganan MoU atau nota kesepahaman LKPP-ICW dan juga Ikatan Ahli Pengadaan Indonesia. Mungkin bisa bergeser di tengah. Ya. Besar harapan dengan penandatanganan MoU, LKPP-IAPI dan juga ICW semakin memperkuat partisipasi dan kolaborasi dalam mengawal pengadaan yang bersih serta bagian dari implementasi Open Government Indonesia. Sekali lagi saya terucapkan terima kasih, dan ketiga perwakilan organisasi bisa kembali ke tempat. Baik, terima kasih sekali lagi.
Forum di Indonesia, dan khususnya pada siang hari ini ditandatangani kerjasama nota kesepahaman antara LKPP, IAPI, dan ICW yang merupakan kelanjutan dari program-program sebelumnya. Bapak Ibu sekalian, kalau kita berbicara korupsi, ini menjadi sebuah fakta keniscayaan yang memang masih menemani kita di dalam kegiatan kita, khususnya di area program pengadaan barang dan jasa. Jadi kalau saya suka ngobrol-ngobrol dengan orang, gimana sih cara kita menyikapi kondisi ini, bagaimana kita melakukan langkah-langkah yang lebih efektif untuk melawan ini. Ada sebuah komentar yang kalau menurut saya ini valid. Jadi katanya di beberapa negara tertentu, ya mungkin termasuk di Indonesia, boleh dikatakan kondisi yang kurang enak ini mengenai korupsi itu sudah cukup
sudah cukup luas gitu loh, kejadiannya, sehingga manakala kita berhadapan dengan situasi ini, lalu apa cara paling efektif kita melakukan? Nah, dia bilang yang paling efektif melawan ini karena ya seolah-olah korupsi tadi sudah menjadi tren, maka kita melawannya juga harus menciptakan tren baru. Nah, gimana menciptakan tren baru? Yaitu tadi, kita perlu berkolaborasi. Dan saya ngelihat pada siang hari ini, 3 institusi dan juga mungkin institusi-institusi pendukung lainnya sudah sepakat kita melakukan kolaborasi. Sebagaimana tadi disampaikan sudah dapat award OGI di tahun 2021, merupakan prestasi bagus. Namun kita perlu pikirkan bagaimana nih efektivitasnya di lapangan gitu ya. Nah, sehingga kami di IAPI itu punya spirit gitu ya. Tadi ada 3E. Spirit kita tuh juga 3. Pertama, kolaborasi. Collaborate. Kenapa? Kalau kita berkolaborasi, kita bisa menciptakan momentum, kita bisa menciptakan energi. Ya ini tadi, karena kok jalan sendiri-sendiri udah susah kita. Kita perlu berkolaborasi untuk menciptakan energi. Jadi collaborate to create energy. Nah, kalau kita sudah memiliki energi, tadi yang mungkin dibilang orang itu, ngelawannya harus pakai tren. Kita bisa energize. Nah ini dia mungkin program-program yang perlu kita pikirkan ke depan. Bagaimana kita sudah mengakumulasi kekuatan ini, kita bisa menciptakan energi, habis itu bagaimana kita mengenergize to others. IAPI sebagaimana misinya sebagai organisasi profesi ahli pengadaan Indonesia, karena organisasi ahli pengadaan, berarti isinya adalah individu-individu para profesional pengadaan barang dan jasa. Sehingga yang kami lakukan pun adalah utamanya dari sini. Paling tidak kita mulai dari anggota IAPI sendiri, bagaimana anggota IAPI juga dari waktu ke waktu kita selalu berusaha tadi mengumpulkan pihak-pihak yang memiliki visi yang sama untuk berkolaborasi, untuk menciptakan energi dan mengenergize. Energize bisa melalui sosialisasi, bisa melalui kegiatan mentoring, dan bermacam-macam. Intinya karena tadi, kita perlu melawan situasi yang sudah quote-unquote kronis ini dengan energi, dengan tren baru, sehingga akhirnya kita bisa menciptakan budaya baru. Ya, jadi katanya kalau ada budaya harus ngerubahnya dengan menciptakan budaya baru. Kita menciptakan alternate culture dari kegiatan yang mungkin selama ini dianggapnya budayanya belum pas. Indah di kata-kata, tapi merealisasikannya tidak mudah. Tapi paling tidak kalau itu kita sudah satu langkah dan kita bersama-sama jamaah untuk menyelesaikannya, insya Allah peluang itu pasti ada. Saya kira itu saja dari saya IAPI, yang jelas dari serangkaian program-program IAPI, kami juga mendukung ide dan upaya kita meningkatkan integritas di dalam kegiatan pengadaan barang dan jasa, dan juga bersama LKPP dan ICW, harapannya kita bisa merealisasikan program-program yang lebih real ya, yang untuk dalam rangka tadi, dalam rangka merealisasikan energi yang besar tadi, untuk bisa kita energize others, sehingga mungkin apa yang sudah dicapai selama ini bisa dilanjutkan gitu ya. Bukan hanya sekedar kita membangun infrastruktur, tapi bagaimana mengimplementasikan infrastruktur ini sehingga menjadi sebuah hasil yang lebih nyata. Saya kira itu saja dari saya. Sekali lagi terima kasih kepada seluruh panitia, terima kasih kepada Bu Sarah dan jajaran di LKPP, terima kasih dari para pimpinan dari ICW dan juga Bapak Ibu sekalian yang turut merealisasikan acara ini sebagaimana yang diharapkan. Terima kasih, selamat siang. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam. Oke, beri tepuk tangan untuk Bapak Sony Sumarsono selaku Ketua DPP IAPI. Terima kasih Pak Sony yang menyampaikan poin-poin tadi pentingnya kolaborasi ya, yang punya kesamaan juga dengan apa yang menjadi isu strategis OGI. Oke, berikutnya adalah sambutan dari Ibu Sarah Sadika, Deputi Bidang Pengembangan Strategi dan Kebijakan LKPP. Kepada Ibu Sarah kami persilakan. Beri tepuk tangan.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Selamat siang Bapak Ibu sekalian. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Yang saya hormati Pak Sony, Pak Agus, Bu Rita, Bu Dwi, Bapak Ibu sekalian yang hadir. Tadi sudah ada Pak Bogat. Kebetulan beliau adalah senior saya, sahabat saya di Bappenas. Sekarang ketemu lagi di forum yang luar biasa ini, forum Open Government. Bapak Ibu sekalian, pertama-tama tentunya kita memanjatkan puji syukur kehadirat Allah Subhanahu wa taala yang karena nikmat sehatnya kita dapat berkumpul di tempat yang baik ini dan juga melaksanakan kegiatan yang sangat baik ini dan juga sangat bermanfaat baik untuk kita semua. Bapak Ibu, pertama-tama kami ingin menyampaikan salam hormat dari Pak Kepala LKPP. Sebenarnya beliau itu sangat ingin hadir bersama Bapak Ibu sekalian. Bahkan beberapa waktu yang lalu mencoba untuk mengadjust waktu supaya bisa bertemu, berkumpul, tapi sayang sekali pada hari Senin beliau sejak Senin sudah ada kegiatan yang mendadak dan tidak bisa diwakili sehingga beliau tidak bisa hadir bersama kita. Namun demikian Bapak Ibu sekalian, ada beberapa arahan pointers dari beliau yang akan kami sampaikan dalam kesempatan siang hari ini. Yang pertama Bapak Ibu sekalian, kalau kita boleh melihat kembali sekitar 20 sampai 23 tahun yang lalu, di mana pengadaan itu sebenarnya pada saat itu tuh masih dalam konteks yang sangat terbatas. Kalau kita lihat pada masa-masa itu bagaimana pasar itu terkotak-kotak, segmented. Lalu kemudian pada tahun 2000 kita lakukan satu reformasi membuka pasar. Mencoba menyamaratakan, membuka peluang dan kesempatan sehingga teman-teman penyedia dari manapun juga itu dapat melihat, mencoba, bahkan berpartisipasi dalam pengadaan. Yang kedua, kalau kita lihat kita terus berinovasi. Kita ingin satu pola yang efisien. Kita ingin keterbukaan, karena dengan keterbukaan itu sebenarnya manfaatnya luar biasa. Kita bisa kemudian mengurangi atau betul-betul kita blocking korupsi, tapi juga pada saat yang bersamaan kesempatan dan peluang penyedia atau pelaku usaha itu menjadi terbuka. Kalau kita lihat sekarang Bapak Ibu sekalian, nah ini sekarang masuk ke arahannya Pak Kepala tentang arah. Kemana sih kita setelah kita melalui perjuangan mungkin hampir 20-an tahun ya. Kalau kita mulai dari tahun 2000 kita lakukan reformasi pertama gitu. Arah kita sekarang Bapak Ibu ternyata tidak jauh berbeda sebenarnya dari implementasi yang tadi sudah kita lakukan, mungkin sekitar 10 tahun yang lalu dengan adanya open tender, yaitu data. Hari ini Bapak Ibu sekalian, kalau kita lihat data pengadaan, seolah-olah hanya bisa berbunyi atau bermanfaat untuk pengadaan saja. Padahal kalau kita bisa mengintegrasikan, bisa menggabungkan atau sharing data kita, maka manfaatnya itu akan jauh lebih besar daripada sekedar hanya untuk pengadaan saja. Bapak Ibu sekalian, ini terjadi ketika Kepala LKPP ditanyakan mengenai jumlah belanja laptop di Indonesia selama nggak banyak-banyak 3 tahun terakhir. Pertanyaannya simpel tapi sulit kemudian untuk menjawabnya. Karena apa? Data kita semua masih terpencar-pencar, scattered, ada di mana-mana. Kemudian kita juga menemui banyak masalah, begitu tersebar, scattered ada di mana-mana, maka kemudian harga siapa yang mau lihat? Keterbukaan di dalam proses kemudian bagaimana? Dan masih banyak lagi masalah-masalah lainnya. Karena itu Bapak Ibu sekalian, arah ke depan yang sekarang sedang dibangun maka kolaborasi kita
right to it. I'd like to invite all the resource persons, speakers, the panelists, so that we can start with the discussion. The first is Ibu Dwi Wahyuni from LKPP, apologies, and then Rita Berlis from IPI, and Wana Alamsyah from ICW. Allow me to introduce them in brief, and they can also introduce themselves. Ibu Dwi Wahyuni Kartini Series from LKPP, Director of the Development of Business Climate and International Cooperation. Board of Governance in charge of professional development of the Indonesian Procurement Professionals Association, and Wana Alamsyah from Indonesia Corruption Watch, the only male that IAPI contains experts. There's also a person with an expertise here, so we can engage with in a discussion. So all of you who are here can also take part and engage in a Q&A discussion after the presentation of the speakers. Can somebody help me? So we'll start with the ladies and then we'll end with the gentlemen. We'll talk a little bit here, starting from Ibu Dwi. We've been talking about transformation of procurement and other related things, but in your opinion, in terms of the development of transparency and accountability policy for procurement transformation, what do you think about those things? And we know that information technology has been developing, and Ibu Soni has said that yes, there are that issue bearing. As I want to acknowledge people who are present on or connected online. I'm sure many of you are already well aware or familiar that we've been involved in this since 2013. So LKPP is actually was formed in 2007 and it was operational in 2008. So it hasn't been too long, and it has four main tasks. The first is to formulate policies on public procurement of goods and services. We also have the vision to develop a system of procurement of goods and services and to improve on the institutionality and also to undertake procurement advocacy. And until now, the LKPP has around 500 employees, but from them, government employees are 352 and the rest are other services. However, ladies and gentlemen, in actually assisted by the units of agencies. Now we have 6,000 people who are helping us, assisting us, and they are at the spearhead of public procurement. So if the question is, what about our strategy to undertake transformation, digital transformation of procurement? This, of course, is connected to the work of people in LKPP and also outside of LKPP. So again, this is co-creation. So what has been done by all of the procurement individuals, and we call them procurement individuals because many of the people who are engaged in procurement, they are well aware of the aspiration in this field. So, ladies and gentlemen, the orientation of LKPP at the moment, and it started since 2 years ago, is to meet or fulfill stakeholders in economic recovery, meet the needs of stakeholders in economic recovery, especially after COVID, and we need to do that quickly, and not only through procurement of goods and services, but actually procurement of goods, services is actually should be somewhat of a last resort because public funds is better directed towards development of the national economy. So LKPP, as the agency that is in charge of procurement, how can we make it easier for the stakeholder to exercise their procurement and spending access? We also want to improve spending of SMEs, goods and services. So we want to optimize that, and usually or primarily from domestic goods and services, because if we don't procure, and then small and medium enterprises, how can we prioritize them? And to do those two things, we are supported by digital transformation. How? Well, because the SMEs must be supported by a procurement system that is easily accessible, user-friendly, one that they have a lot of information about, and that can be achieved with none other than digital transformation. So that's been the orientation of LKPP until now. National issues such as poverty rate that perhaps is still high, and unemployment rate that has not been decreased, maternal mortality is still at an alarming rate, Gini ratio, per capita income, development index, all of those metrics can be improved. So that's what we are doing. Ibu Dewi, of course, we do all of these things without setting aside the principles of procurement like just, efficient, effective, transparent, open. And I think this is an important one, open, because it is one procurement principle that we have included even our standard regulations. So in terms of regulations, they have to abide by the 7 principles, and one of them being open or openness. So that's from me for the time being to respond to your question. How do we do it and how we undertake it? I don't think we have to go into the strategy. I think I'll stop now and then we'll continue after this. Thank you so much, Ibu Dwi. An interesting remark there by Ibu Dewi, the small and medium enterprises, and we've seen the impact. And this is something recent because the COVID emergency status has been lifted just last year. So we've been under COVID for 3 years, and the effects has been something that not only we felt, but also the businesses who, in the beginning of 2020, was just starting out, or maybe at the end of 2019 was just starting out. So what's going to happen with them, because there were some social and physical restrictions, distancing as well. We could shift to Zoom or Google Meet, but what about those businesses, small and medium enterprises? So I think this is something that is interesting. And if any of you would like to ask questions, maybe those of you who are on Zoom or on YouTube, maybe you want to ask the question like, I am just starting up. I am a small business. How can I take part in the procurement process? What is the procedures to do that? Now, allow me to shift to a different panelist while we're waiting for comments and questions from the audience. Allow me to shift to Ibu Rita now. From EAP, what are the challenges that you see to develop procurement? We're still talking about digital transformation of that.
Thank you so much, Ibu Dwi. Ladies and gentlemen, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. May peace be upon all of us. Therefore, by the narrations, and then Mrs. or Ibu Sarah also share with us that the procurement, starting from the manual provision to the electronicals methodology or mechanisms, procurement services is attached to that mechanisms. Again, the change or the modifications, certainly it required us to not just changing the pattern and mechanism, but also the mindset. How we can or enabling that to highlight of important pointers. We have the highest instructions given by the president. We need to put the binocular from the President Decree number 22. This is starting from the meeting by the year of 2020, and the process in that year of 2020, people were still have the skepticals of local and rectoral. We heard the story from the LKPP. They are struggling, and then they're giving the force of that effort. But again, it has a lot of challenges, and we have a lot of actors or the perpetrator in the field that keep doing the case, and we need to ensuring the socializations, disseminations, training, implementing the benchmark. We need to preserve and continuing that efforts. In terms of competences, we have able to see on the educative or educations methods. We have to provide like basic certifications and then develop to the competences development, competences skill, and it being developed as well into leveling certifications from level 1 up to level 4. So we have a lot of development happened throughout the times. Certainly, with that development, giving the impact as well to all of the stakeholders and to all people. So the competences is part which is quite easy. We can open the classes and we implementing the monitoring by doing this exercise or training. Again, the difficult part will be when it's related to the behavioral or the mindset, because it's relevant, like competence is relevant to the enforcement of some rules or term and procedure, but like mindset or behavioral will be like whether it's good or really good. So there's more multi dimensions. That will be the biggest challenges. We had the story that being shared by Mr. Deputy, Madam Deputy. There's always flows or there's always the potentials to have that post corruption situations. So that is actually our biggest homeworks. How all of us or how we able to do the most strategical ways. Perhaps we going to have more methodology or like how to progressively doing the respond to that. But this is actually driven us to how to act, how to implement the accelerations of what it's been mentioned from manual mechanism to the electronic mechanism, provide the provision of procurement and related to the human resources as well, the manpower. But the big questions, whether the actors or the organizer and the implementer willing to do so and to preserve or to continue the programs and prevent the corruptions. If we had the story or the experience that Pak Sony or Mr. Sony mentions, like like accompanying the corruptions, like living together with corruptions. But again, the manpower or the human being is actually a create a human being is actually a creation that always need a companion along the way. Again, by the systems has been delivered by the LKPP. Ibu Dwi already mentioned about the orientations and how exactly the methodological has been designed in a very prominent ways. The questions that being emerged to the surfaces, whether the government, especially in the local area, can do or can implement that. The question or the answer is not like whether they can do it or not, but they must do it. Because the entire overall data within Indonesia, we need to collaborate together because we are being instructed to the LKPP and then to the subdivisions, agency or institutions, and PLCOM as well. Why don't we follow the instructions? So that is exactly the central of the implementations, Mrs. Dwi. So in the e-catalog, you're able to see from the national and bisectoral is quite complete, especially from the local as well. There's SMEs and then the innovations. LKRR will be one of the integrated programs. We do have the initiator from the manpower. They are very innovative. They are creating their local catalog. That is actually very potential to be integrated into the systems. So we're able to see there's so many various easiness. We do have the will and then like the opportunity we given already. So we need to be persistent and consistent to learn and practicing and then to make it sustainable coming from our personal development, from the training and the monitoring as well. Thank you so much, Mrs. Rita. Very interesting. I do have a questions, but I will address the question later, probably at the end of the sessions. We talk about the manpower or the human resources. What do we say about calling them? It mentions that it depends on the human being, whether they have the willing and the persistency of being good or just only good or like really good. And the discussions about national to area or local area that must do it. If we talk about challenges, of course, it's always happen and always incur throughout the process. So I probably better not to call you Pa or Mister. So I will going to call you like Mas or like younger. Salutations. I would like to know about the optimization, especially on the internal and external monitoring, especially from the community or CSO, NGOs, or local community association or organizations, especially related to the procurement services. We know the signing of the MoU since 2013 between the state organization LKPP, ICW, and IAPI. How exactly the involvement of the public into that procurement sector? Is it increasing? Is it stagnant? Or like slightly increase? Or does it decrease? Thank you. Good afternoon, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. I would like to warmly greet everyone that attend this in this venue and also the colleague that attending online as well inside the Zoom platform. A very interesting fact actually, by 2013 when we are, that will be the first starter, we're doing the collaborations with the LKPP, ICW and IAPI. We work closely with the media, the press, and also the journalistic sectors and society as well. It's become a very challenging when we see the involvement of the society. When we talk about the procurement, we talk about to provide advantage or benefits for the public. like improving the infrastructure, providing the facilities, and how the facility able to be utilized and being used by the public as well. What exactly becoming the current focus by ICW? We are focused on the society or community when we observing there's a infrastructure development around the areas. We also promoting or encouraging to conduct the supervision or monitoring whether the development process by the provider or by the OPD or LKPD able to provide or implement a very high standard quality qualified to do the development. By 2013, being briefed and presented to the LKPP from ICW exactly opentender.net. How the public able to access this procurement information holistically from the tender or access to the implementations. Again, at that time, the access only to the provider category, but we talk about digitalization in terms of the government context. The procurement sectors for us is become a best practices. Nevertheless, there's few information that we're able to access until now. When you talk about the societal community monitoring or supervisions, there's few of the case or study that happened. If there's any potentials of the corruption or the tendency of that cases, one of the example will be the provision of curtains items. But public able to do this provision or the monitoring if they observing of it's impossible or doesn't make sense if seeing the cost of the curtains of the items were cost that much. Again, from the operator.net, it became an instrument and tools that able to be utilized and accessed by the public as well. It's become one of other challenges, which is where at the moment the public only able to do the monitoring after the implementations completed. So not every procurement able to be monitored on the planning or on the process. From the data that we have, the corruption cases happen starting or on the planning process, and we are seeing the verdict given by the court. The corruption exactly started from that point, from the costing manipulations, and then the collective procurement, and when the company has been appointed from the start. One point that we have to support or more penetrate, emphasize, is more complete in terms one for example in the LKPP on the public or general procurement information is provide inform how exactly the deadline, how long is the deadline, when is the deadline, and where is the area, what is exactly the procurement items, but need to be detailed, like need to be sharpened in terms of the internal auditor. For example, currently in the ICW, we are built the collaboration with few inspectorate in the Maros Island, also Kupang Island, by establishing open contracting partnership. This become one of our capital to look for new strategy. And if ICW work together with the media in past or from the journalistic back, you know, society or the community as well, from the peak, the inspectorate able to support, able to help to give the monitoring since the planning process to prevent the manipulations or the tendency to have the corruptions. If there's any unhealthy competitions or um, I hope we can collaborate. I think that's will be from me, and we're able to collaborate more or elaborate more further. Thank you so much. So I have my three questions has been addressed, but I do have the further questions. Continuation, I extend the questions after this. I would like to address the question to Buduri. We talk about the manpower or the human capital, like the procurement of the manpower. Can you share with us how what is the achievement, what is exactly the target of the LKPP to what future stake or future point that the LKPP would like to achieve. When we talk about the manual mechanism of the procurement, we know the information from the newspapers, and like the level is separated into the electronic mechanism. So what exactly the innovation targets and what exactly the current status of that? Thank you, Mrs. Dewi. So before I respond to the targets questions, I think it's best for us, we need to acknowledge or need to recognize what is the best strategy from LKPP to implement the innovations, especially related to the government procurement services. The approachment, we have 4 pillars. The first will be the policy, so regulatory frameworks. Second is exactly the development of the institution or capacity building to the human capital, so and the institution building. The third pillars will be market operations, that simplifying the market operations and user friendly with implementing the digital transformations. The fourth pillars provide more is implementation of monitoring. So that will be the 4 pillars from us. This strategy is not coming from the LKPP alone or having the role of implementing that 4 pillars. Not only the human capital or the manpower that need to do that, but this is like more broader spectrums. When we know that ICW have their role as well, supporting into the mechanism of the procurement, but again, they could support in from the policy segment, operation systems, institutional building, and monitoring implementation as well. One of the example, if we talk about policy, when we do a policy formulations, certainly the objective how that they would like to achieve, how exactly to implement or creating the right policy to be aligned to the procurement, to give a clarity to the objective, and who or how the institutional that giving influence or giving a positive impact to that, and what exactly the materials and also what the outcomes and the beneficial or the benefits or how to utilize and the continuation of the result. The one of the example when we formulated the policies, any policies to the revision of the presidential decree or decisions, we at the moment at the process of applying that into the law and regulation as well, related to the public service procurement. We also provide inputs from the institutional and human capital perspective. LKPP work together with the LKPD. We work together conducting the manpower or human resources training. LKPP creating or designing a procurement models that could access easily and easy to implement. You could follow with MOOC, massive online courses. So limitless, like anytime, anywhere, everywhere, like you could access this to know the knowledge how to plan and planning process and then to implement is easier to access. With this kind of easiness, it's also user friendly. We encourage like use the model. You don't need to create or design new models, and it's free of charge. There's no hidden fees or hidden costs that you need to pay. Related to the market operation, we're going to share long stories. So market operations. First of all, we start from the planning point. We can see, I think we have what we call it as the architecture's design is an end-to-end procurement system from the planning, starting from the selection process of the suppliers, the management contracts. So all the planning is exactly being explained or being conveyed as in the slide number 8. Previous slide. You're able to see how the circulations convey to you. This is 2M procurement system from the planning and then preparations, and then the selections, contract implementations, up to the assigning or the provisions of project. So we still have it's become our homeworks. We admit that. So we call it as an on the way progress. When we see from the planning mechanism, we have this structure you could access without any registrations or password. So it's an open access. Everybody able to access this stage, and you're able to know the detail of the entities, who are they, what is the budget, how much exactly the budget or deadline, when is the timeline. The information is complete, provide on this conduct planning, and then how to raise procurement package as well on the preparations stage. It will be it's ongoing, still ongoing, and the selections, whether you're going to participate by tender or by purchasing mechanisms. You're able to see how the details is open access as well, and the announcement is an open access, but when you were entering the selection stage, only the account bidder who able to have the access and login. For the contract implementations, after the project assigning as well, we need to make sure like who exactly the provider. Is it coming from the Domestic Affair Ministry or SEP, SIPD, and then like policy and also the proficiency of the domestic affair as well, and have to be integrated. It still become our homework as well, but the homeworks has been supported and also explained by Mrs. Rita. We have our presidential decree and instructions too on the slide number 7. So all of the duty and the role has been classified. What exactly the duty of the domestic affair, and then the Minister of Finance, Industry, Bapenas, the state-owned enterprise, and etc. So it has been mandated clearly and classified under the presidential's decree and instructions. So you could do the monitoring as well. So it's more being monitored day by day by the Marfes ministry, and we do have our colleague from the state secretarial offices, and we are being monitored day by day to achieve that implementations. And the next questions related to targets. Before that, with the integrity and monitoring, there's a co-creation that led by example between ICW with LKPP and IAPI by the MoU signing. We have OpenTenderNet.net with ICW. In OpenTender.net, exactly the reflection of the systems from the systems. If you're able to see the data from the C road, so you're able to get the details as well. In the framework of having clearing house in every of the procurement entity units, what is the objective by clearing house? The cooperation or collaborations in every procurement unit, if there's any issue or anything happen, we're able to do the solutions by the clearinghouse. Mrs. Rita, we call her as the midwife, right, of the project as well. After that, we do have few applications that supporting if there's any potentials, cases or situations that will violating the policy or the law and regulations or the mechanisms. But again, you're able to conduct so because we already have these systems. And if you're asking about the targets, as we explained in the slide number 9, this is our procurement innovation targets in the strategical planning of LKPP. Related to regulations, the targets will be the implementation's effectivity of the index, regulations on the good value of the PBJ, and so you can see on the effectivity index that you could calculate as well. So the human capital or the human resources segment, we focus on that segment too. It's not like how much is the capacity, but the performer of the human capital. So the calculations of that, how they could spend and realization of the SMEs by 47%. Like Pak Bogat mentions, just 8.2 trillions when related to the national budget. There's a couple of thousand of trillions. So 47% will be about 470 something 100 trillion. So we have a big homework. Mrs. Rita mentions as well, perhaps we need to improve the capacity building, or what else we should do. We need to do further discussions. Yeah, and then probably the disseminations were not evenly being conducted, like in terms of the regional area of the Indonesia archipelago from, you know, east to west, west to east, and then how we able to implement this 47% of the procurement purchase or budget. So we are far from that target at the moment. From the procurement of the PDN by 43%, this is not included to the SME's PDN product. We do know the import supply. We are reducing in that procurement, which is for the goods or the items that usually being purchased imported. Our president mentioned on his speech that we need to reduce it to only 5% if we're going to purchase the goods or items. So we still need to achieve this 43% of planning. And Madam Deputy mentions that for point something million that provide in the e-catalog, our target within this year will be 5 millions. We don't have any issue from the LKPP. We are confident to achieve that, but the homework is exactly on the field. We cannot do alone. We need to do co-creation, collaboration, and what is the last point? Contribute. So everyone have to contribute to achieve that targets. Correct, yes. So we have 5 millions to display or convey the product in the e-catalog. Another homework related to the human capital and the procurement services and sources on the transaction value up to 500 trillions, because it's close to a couple of thousand of the trillions that I just mentioned. This is difficult, yes, because we not just giving a push or encourage or promote or enforcing this, because the responsibility of the calculations, the profit and loss, and then the purchase, and then the responsibility of spending or purchasing from that budget. Related to the integrity and the monitoring, with the clearinghouse mechanisms or implementations, we hope within the local government able to settle or provide solutions to the procurement effectively by 45%. And effectively, we decide to conduct the clearinghouse. So we need to assign a specific specialist as well. We need to have an advisor or like special task force team. We need to assign a specific advisor. There's a couple of dozen of area point as well. That is one of our targets. So not just target, but has been delivered like 47%. At the moment, we just spend about 8.2 trillion, so still far away from the targets. So that is exactly the reality with the realizations. Thank you, Mrs. Dwi. So in terms of the role play, or like exactly who is implementer, what kind of duty, what exactly duty of the Minister of Domestic Affairs, Minister of Finance. So the role of CSO or public in terms of the digital transformation procurement, how this CSO doing? Like we collaborate, you said you collaborate with the media and press and then with community as well. But by seeing this digital transformation procurement, which of the CSO participation or role inside that mechanisms? So yes, we're going to go to the slide number 10. This is actually what is the public expectation? What is exactly the expectation of how the public placement, like the integrity, monitoring, targets, and policy regulations? You need a lot of input advising to what kind of best policy constructively. We always open what we call as a public opinion, like public consultations. We always conducting that whenever we do policy formulations. We receive inputs or feedbacks, but unfortunately it's not being supported by a prevent reviews. So we need more constructive ways or implementations. Like we need the scientific data or proven data to ensure we are submitted or the reasoning of that. Again, there's a lot of open access already, like what ICW do. And with IAPA, we do back-to-back collaborations. We also conduct what we call as a public discussion or a forum related to the procurement. Yes, so a public communication forum. We implemented that activities already, but within the targets and realizations, we need to improve and to make it more hammer kicking, to make it more happening, to make it more successfully. But because of the pandemic of COVID, we know we always do this online. We know that not effective as we doing offline. I hope that since now we're going to have more people not just doing it online but also offline. So this is like a communication forum, which is not the entities inside this mechanism, not just by government but also the provider or supplier that we have to provide the socializations about the information because they are the user of the procurement, right? We need three elements that we have to ensure, which is the government. Second will be the business player or the supplier, and society will be the third element. So community or society will be the user of the procurement services. So that is exactly what we expected. And for user, we need to improve the capacity building of the business actor because we know that our target will be SMEs and it's not just small but micropreneurship. Not just small SMEs, but like not just SME, but like micro SMEs. The most transactions is just 10 million in terms of transactions amount. That's very small. So this business actor or player, they would like to have more simplified a procedure, user friendly. They could access from their phone. They will expect they are able to do transactions, and we have to give guidelines or guidance for them how to access and to provide or designing or creating what is comprehensive proposal to fulfill the term and condition from the LKPP. In LKPP, we do this, and when we get the data from the SMEs ministries, the business actor will be 60 millions of business actors or business player. Is it true from the SMEs or micro SMEs? And when I'm asking where is the data come from, we don't have the data. So when we use this data, the business player that following this activity only couple like 400,000 business player, only 200,000 that categorized as a micro or SMEs. Where is the other? We say 60 millions. We LKPP have like the number, have the contact number, have the PIC with the directors or CEOs of the business. But again, if the data is like 60 million, who are they? We don't have the data, the full data. We have 12 ministry that provide the training and then like supporting this program. And we have to align with the ministry. Like if it's like business player on the human resources, human capital, you have to be under the ministry or a minister of human resources or manpower. And then if it's related to the investment, go to the Ministry of Investment. So we have to be aligned with the policy and who are the entities and the stakeholders. We also would like to capture this data. This also on progress. So Madam Deputy also mentioned, and our head of LKPP also mentioned, we have to ensure that the data is accurate, and you need to fast speed or make it more faster and promptly in terms of providing the response. The curriculums and the learning methodology able to be accessed, and then like the collaboration from 12 KL or like 12 ministry, technical and relevant ministry. You could collaborate with them, and we need to ensure it has to be inclusive. And you need to do the right approachment. Let's say for the womenship entrepreneurship, you could go to the Ministry of Women and Children's Empowerment, and then like the young business actors will be supported by Cominfo or the Ministry of Information and Technology. They have what they call digital leadership training. So digital leadership training. What they provide, they are providing the training to all the business player, which still categorized as a young entrepreneur. We also work together. We provide them with this knowledge of procurement in supporting their role into the process of the procurement. At the moment, we are collaborating with the friends from the UKM Indonesia, which is the Association of Indonesia SMEs. If ICW would like to collaborate as well, we would be very happy. So go to the market operations. We need to have the syrup, which is within the application that able to be accessed by public without registration, without any password. You can utilize all of the details and informations provide related to the integrity and transparency. So I agree. We work together with APIP. So please Kali do collaborations with LKPP, the BPK, BPKP, APH. So that will be the institution you need to work together. We could say that we align, we synchronize each other. And please kindly utilize the open tender.net. When you access the open tender, will be coming from the deputy 4. We have Pastor Theo joining us, but he already asked permission to leave. That will be the public role that can be implemented or can be encouraged to the society. Thank you, Mrs. Dwi. We have multiple role actually, in fact, and all of us, not just me, but all of us expect or hope that every one of the stakeholder that attending today's event and also attending online, understanding the same message, like we able to spread the outreach globally, like massively, not just to the young entrepreneur or young business player, but also into the other procurement human capitals and sources. I have slightly another questions in terms of the issue or complaint policy or access. It can be reported anonymously, but you mentioned we have FBS as well, whether we could have the guarantee if we raising or we are reporting the complaint or is there any public complaint. You could find this information on the slide number 11 along with the Presidential Decree number 16 by 2018 and following the modifications. And by the version number 77, it has been accommodated inside this regulations that the society and IPA is able to reporting the complaint following evidence-based, credible and authentic. Whereof to report, which is to APIP. APIP is actually the first channel, and APIP will do the following up and then reporting the complaint, which is evidence-based and credible and authentic. To whom does this report will be extended to? They will report it to the minister or to the head of the institution or the local government related. And this exactly implemented the Article 77. And by following up this report, if there's any indication of the corruptions or collusion nepotisms, it will go to the law systems and will be prosecuted or be processed. Because related to the procurement, I do check this access, but there's information which is under construction. I would like to ask question to the deputy 4. Can you check again one more time, dearest colleague? That's the website where still have a problem, so you can access this, which is the website of reporting to lkpp.go.id. This is related to the national procurement website. We do have consultation feature that you could communicate with the LKPP as well through the website. Unfortunately, it's still under constructions. I don't know whether we could access by now. So you could access this website to the pengaduan.lkpp or go.go.id. If you have, we have the article number 77 following the instruction number 18 by 2018. So by following the systems, the website will be wbs.inaprod.id. So you could utilize this website. That will be the information from me, Miss Dewi. Okay, so under maintenance website. Unfortunately, yes. But the informations will be following what Mrs. Dewey just shared with all of us, that this procurement, in terms of the procurement, if we talk about procurement again, some segment of people say it's difficult. We need to know from the beginning. Even we confused where does it start? When does exactly the beginning? We have to move very slow, like slowly. You could ask questions, or you could confirm to LKPP, ICW, or even IAPI to have more, like to be more aware or like have the awareness. So it's exactly this age of the spears. They're exactly that going to provide the public facility. It need to be safeguarded from the planning procurement. It's not just like hocus pocus by bring out our hands. It's like poof, it's available like hospital, for instance, or like public facility. That's why by society or community, it's need to be aware and be informative as well. Need to be always informed. And the objective or the purpose is we have more young generation to encourage them to be more having awareness or open to the procurement literacy. So yeah, it's not like starting from the basic level, level 1 up to level 4, but we need to know how to monitor safeguarding and know exactly where is the access from the website, from the syrup, and then pengaduan or the in proc.id, what exactly the government do. And now we are close to the elections, so therefore it's always more procurement coming. So we would like to have more young generations involved in that mechanism. So, Mrs. Dwi, thank you so much. I do have one last questions, but I would like to address that question to all of our panelists. I would like to move to Mrs. Rita, talk about socialization, disseminations, how exactly the purposes and objective, what exactly the target of the procurement provider. If we talk about the public procurement, what is the benefit or incentive for the society or for the community or for people, especially the micro SMEs? We know that multiple platform or marketplace that belong to the private sectors that easily, like for instance, Tokopedia or Shopee and etc. What exactly the benefit or advantage by following the procurement mechanism or knowledge training that the government provide? Thank you, Mrs. Dewi. It's clear, has been shared that every opportunity is given. It's open wide. The next effort, how exactly the people that being provided with the access and the opportunity utilize it? What is the incentive? The benefits as the incentive. Because we are entering the digital transformation of the procurement. The process will be much easier, faster, and accountable as well. And by systems, especially using government systems. Therefore, this micro SMEs, when they're implementing exactly what is being mandated or instructed, they're able to conduct efficiency on the supply chain. They they could prevent for stacking the commodity or the goods in their warehouse or business. They able to make the business running well, and when they do the financial report, the accuracy how to do is very clear by following the process. So incentive is not just in money or revenue or profit values, but the saving energy, saving manpower. It will reduce the administrations. Remember, it's like from the manual kind of methodology, it goes to electronic systems. It's fastering the process. Yeah, we have the NC like from 9 stage or only 2 stage. Like you need to register yourself. Of course, we have the NC2, not just, but you have to provide prominent or comprehensive. What exactly that we sell? Even though we only sell the smashed chicken, you have to be into the systems. For example, let's say if we are already, let's say we already start the procurement. So the how exactly the broader spectrum of this entrepreneurship or the business is not just domestic, local or national. Who knows? Like from the micro SMEs become SMEs, and then after that it become widely big player and then able to do globally. So by government, it's clear like the budget coming from the national, local budget, but like from private sector, sometimes they could run away, but like government, they couldn't run away. So they will pay everything. And now like even on the domestic loan, it come from the government credits, and then it's safe from robbery. They will not bring like 30 million in cash in their bags. You could see the small trader or like the small seller, they bring 20 millions and they're being robbed in the middle of going somewhere commuting, right? With the facilitations that government provide with integrated systems, with the electronic transformation as well, it's enabling or like provide more easiness. It's like bringing forward to what the current business and giving more better atmosphere and like more passionate business. We need to be the voice, voicing this by socialization. Probably yeah, they have difficulties to enter or to access the website, but by the tutorial using YouTube, not just Pasatio, like every speak person or spokesperson have their YouTube. I'm the only person who don't have YouTube account. I hate and watch that A person making this tutorial and the other B person do the same. And I do remember there's a lot of like small SMEs, like SMEs in my area, like selling coffee, selling smashed chicken menus, and they keep on opening their business. So millennials, younger generations, women business player, sometimes they have, binding hands like other incentive you are asking, not just the money value. If I pay attention, our colleague in the LKPP, at the end of the year, they give reward. Who knows that these SMEs will receive the award or the rewards, become viral and increasing the business after that. And like ERP or IAPI, Pak Sony is here, right? We're going to establish the reward to, who knows, is also given to the SMEs category. So the incentive not just money value, but opportunity, time efficiency, and then rewards as well. I do remember when we are doing the coordinations, when we give the reward, we give cash as well as the reward. That's good to sort of like add the capital to the business. And what will be the next incentive? There's a accordance, accordancy of certainty of law and procedural. So by government support, we're able to have the right channel, right? To pengaduan.co.id, WBS, you could visit LKPP office. They have assigned deputy that already being mandated to provide solutions and handling cases that being complained or reported. They provide advisor and expert, professional expert as well. So we can guarantee we will not run to any place. We will not do the runaway things. We also, the dispute settlement, you don't need to go to court, because if you go to court, it takes a long process, or to the LPS or the legal dispute settlements institution. So we have more certainty to the compliantness of the terms and procedural. If it's supported by the government, it's exactly being mandated to the regulation and being coordinated within the regulation. And the system has been developed to provide to the necessity from micro to the big enterprise. We need to just follow through and implementing the instructions, having the goodwills and persistency and consistency, and we could enforce the integrity. Like I said, as we face the challenges. If you being asked about what kind of incentive, that will be the incentive. Thank you, Mrs. Rita, for the response. So if I could highlight it or summarize, there's multiple incentive coming from that. If we discuss or talk about the guarantee of payment and like certainty of the payment, it's guaranteed 100%. So it's not a fictional payment, right? Yeah. If you compare like the neighbor's market, I will not mention brand, but like the other neighbor store, yes. When they are, order the items, there's no transactions and there's no following up of that. So by access or taking the opportunity, the procurement that provided by the government, the payment is being guaranteed. Thank you, Mrs. Rita. So, Mr. Wana. Perhaps Mrs. Rita or Mrs. Dwi able to edit some of your perspective or like the response as well. Um, talking about the latest corruption cases, like Pak Patria mentioned, there's two cases happening, but one of the cases that I know related to the corruptions with the e-catalog methodology. So within the procurement corruptions, like the IDEKTP or the electronic ID card, we have that kind of prolonged drama. We all of us still remember that cases, and especially from the press and media, they exactly the witness and how long does this cases happen? What exactly government can do or CSO able to do? What kind of actions to prevent or like to fighting or stopping this potentials of corruptions? Mas Wana representing the ICW, right? As today's panelist, do you have any recommendations from the ICW to prevent the corruptions, especially in terms of the public procurements, not just within the e-catalog, but also in other multiple procurement systems? Thank you so much. So this will be a very essential point. This is a template answer too, but the accountability and transparency has become very important. Related to the e-catalog, we could see what kind of product which is available on the electronic catalog from LKPP. Luckily, when LKPP work together with IAP and with ICW, there's a data transfer that provide from LKPP to the ICW. So in the opentender.net that we have and provide, we have the details. For example, the transaction that has been conducted by every part of government and LKPD, not just e-purchasing information, but also within the e-catalog. That's become one of the important matters that need to be supported and need to be monitored together. We do remember this one of the most trending cases, which is from the mayor of Bandung, that the corruption cases exactly because of the catalog. Like we know so far that we have this framework of pillar that we're doing this to prevent the corruption, but so systems, by having system, is not a silver bullet to stop the corruption. We also have another perspective, like system is just a tools. So that would be, we need to highlight that as an important matters. Again, when the informations were clearly published, there will be like we need to know there's a loophole that able to be supervised or monitored by the public. If we had colleague and participant who are attending from online in Zoom, they could go to the e-catalog, you know exactly the perpetrator from the CFO company. We could see how many transactions. Before I was coming here, there's 43 transactions since 2021 to 2023. Not just happen in the Bandung city alone, but it's coming from the West Java province and the West Bandung Regency, Ciamis city, and even the Ministry of Law and human right also using the C catalog. So the law enforcement able to do the tracking or the tracing to these potential or even corruptions cases. We need to promote this. Society or say so actively giving reports like Mrs. Dewey and Mrs. Rita talk about the pengaduan website. ICW since 2022, we trying to do marathons monitoring agenda. We invite the public sitting together by 24 hours, conducting this monitoring of the procurement and the report to the e-reporting or e-pengaduan. The highlight, the system from the LKPP is great. It gives 20 days, by 20 days, government internal oversight apparatus. So from the cases from this going to APIP, half of it were not being replied. So this become a big challenges. If we couldn't see this as a matters that need an actions, we need to do straightens in these mechanisms. Go to the e-catalog. What exactly we need to open or what exactly need to be open or actions by LKPP? Because the data basically come from LKPP, come to ICW. So what LKPP need to open the access exactly the transactions history. Correct me if I'm wrong, ladies and gentlemen. But inside the e-catalog, we only able to see the product. So it's work as an etalon, the etalons or the showcases of the product. The problem will happen. We also discussed with Pak Patria from the LKPP before. You mentioned as well, we need to check or see the price updating and the transaction history is also one of the segments that have the potential to be corrupted or manipulated. So it's not just the actions that we have to do, but by the presidential's European instructions, we need to have 5 million product that need to be conveyed and display in the e-catalog, and then the transaction by 500 trillions. It means there's a huge potential that we need to safeguard it together. We don't want from 500 trillions, like 30% or 40% from that amount will be evaporated to the air because of the corruptions. In terms of the context of the Bandung cases, the transaction like 900 million is gone, like it's been corrupted from the total amount of that transactions. Again, the negative impact goes to the community because they're the one who will use the public facilities. One is one of the important things I would like to address over here is also important, not just strengthens, but like protecting the ecosystems when people or society would like to report. One of the example recently, there's a lot of trends of the news happening, like the infrastructure development in Lampung in Sumatra province. So people have the awareness. If there's an issue, you could report that to the government. But the problems or the issue happened when they are reporting this. There's an implication. It's being criminalized or being intimidated. I do agree that the e-pengaduan or the e-reporting or the WBS or any channel is become important to be the tools to give more protections to the society. So the society not just have the certainty of feeling safe of reporting the situations or what cases happened. We don't want to have this process of after reporting that the reporter is like being present. So that will be one of the challenges we have to tackle as well. So not just LKPP, but ICW need to respond to that. When we have CSO, the press and media, you know, not just them that could report to the channel, but we need to think about the strategy from IAP, LKPP, ICW will be the important stakeholders and entities on that systems. Thank you, Mrs. Wana. Mrs. Rita, I would like to hear for your response. The recommendations? Yes.
Korupsi. Iya. Eh, kalau apa kemarin
The other day, or in 2020, IAPI conducted a research, and it should have covered 5 ministries and agencies who have developed their catalogs. And I think at the time they weren't part of the reforms, and they had each of their e-catalogs, and we couldn't cover 5 and 5, but we could cover only 2 ministries and agencies and 3 local governments, and they covered people who are procurement individuals and the government. We couldn't cover the vendors or the suppliers. The issue of corruption does not involve only the government, but also the vendors, and because we were doing it during COVID, we were doing it in a restricted manner, and this is something that we were undertaking at the request of the Corruption Eradication Commission, or the KPK. And what we researched was all of the aspects from planning to preparation, implementation, down to uh, accountability reporting. And the indicators were the performance measurement and the fulfillment of value for money. So because we had 7 principles that we included into the research so that we can see all of the processes, all of the steps, whether they comply with the procurement principles, and we can also see whether it produces value for money. And the results of the research indicates that there's something about participation. So we need a lot of participation. And maybe you can project this on screen, but the research shows this, that there's a low level of, no, after the implementation of e-catalog at the local, I think I was talking about this when I was talking about whether the local government apparatus, whether they were able to do this. So there are 7 principles from effective, efficient, transparent, competitive, and accountable. So what we are presenting here are maybe not all the points because we don't have enough time, but basically the things that we think needs to be improved to fill the gaps. So why is this happening? It's happening because they weren't involved since the beginning. So when they are about to engage in a contract, they only instruct others to do it, and they order other parties, and that's what they do. And those who are implementing, they just follow along. So that's what happens. So from planning down to determination of goods and services, they were not a part of it. So that's the outcome of the research. And at the time, there it was not integrated like what we have now. But the availability in the catalog is something that they determine, oh, this is what we like only. And at the local government, the demand for stationery has been so much, but why wasn't not included? Even though that's a very strategic, has a very strategic potential to be included in the local catalog so that the prices for paper, reams of paper could be different from one unit of government to another, and it's very suspicious. I'm just suspicious. I'm not making any accusations, but that is suspicious. So how can we get a single price between all the units? So that's in terms of strategy, but in the future, I think that's for the LKPP to address. Now, the next is inside the system. So the catalog, what is the catalog? Maybe later. And because they were saying things like that, we found that there were instructions, like I mentioned. So there's a lack of understanding in terms of the utilization of the e-catalog, the use of catalogs, and the lack of understanding about, because the e-catalog, maybe now the system is better. When we purchase at volume, then we can have good competitiveness. In the past, whether we want to purchase one or a lot, the price is the same, so it's not as competitive. So there's a lack of understanding on the users to optimize them. And that's why there's indications of corruption. And there was an instance where those who were purchasing through the catalogs, they were put in jail compared to those who were not purchasing through the e-catalog. But that's in the past between 2016 to 2017. And I was a person who were consulted by that person. That person was saying that I followed all the rules. I joined the e-catalog and I participated through it, but now I'm in jail. So something is happening, and something is happening from the preparation of that, and that happens at the working group. And the working group, well, it could be at the working group or other stages, but I think there's also a lack of understanding of the supply chain, and the expert of supply chain is Pat Sony. So in the future, our human resources, human capital should be able to study this and maybe make a decision based on what needs to be done. It needs to be done this way, or it needs to be done that way. So there is a lack of understanding of the supply chain. But with that understanding, we will not have cartels. That's why we see, why is this so pricey? So it's like they're price setting or monopolizing. So how can we prevent that? And I think this is something that we already see addressed at the policy level. So, and maybe this is related to what was mentioned by Juana earlier. The process has been underway without anybody being an expert in it. And what we need is, and this is for shown in the survey as well, maybe we need a company with an assistance. So there's not much assistance for a company from experts or from AMPI, which is the internal oversight mechanism of the government. Even though when we see its functions, they should act as the party that provides quality assurance. So not collecting findings, but they actually need to provide assistance. If there's any mistakes, they need to accompany them to make corrections of improvements. So that's from accountability. There's a lack of skills to conduct justifications that are measured. And in many cases, the items that are received are not like what they ordered. And they don't know what they want, they can do in those instances. So because this is happening because of lack of understanding. If the specifications are not according to the order, then that means that's correction. But if they do understand, then they can do their work better. And if the people are competent and they know what they need to do and they do it according to what needs to be done, there needs to be no problem. They can. There's fewer accusations that they're not committing corruption. And lastly, the minimum number of experts or oversight people, because they need to be partners. They are not the public enemies. So if they want to be partners, that means that they need to be better than perpetrators. They need to be a place where people ask questions because they are providing quality assurance. They are people that other people consult and ask. But oftentimes these people have actually the lack of understanding, and we need to have a separate auditors class. And looking at the module, I think this is something that we have already, the module for the auditors, but I think that there's not many classes, and those classes I oftentimes I ask whether there are internal oversight people of the government there, because the implementers are there, but the internal oversight are not there. And then when they want to conduct an audit, and or maybe not an audit but a review, they actually ask more questions because they want to learn, because they don't understand. So what needs to be done? We need all parties to be competent, and when the people are competent, they can act in a professional way. And professional means integrity, accountability, and transparency as well. So that's that. And so the recommendation is, how can we improve the capacity of the actors? And the term is, I just remember, the term is ecosystem. So the human capital ecosystem, they are not the actors, but they are the ecosystem. So there's the internal oversight, as was mentioned by Budui. There's, what was it before? I can't remember. There's one missing. What needs to be done? We need collaboration. So the keyword is collaboration, not just coordination, not just pointing fingers, but they are a part of it. They're blending in. It's a real collaboration between the parties, from the planning and the implementation, to be taking part in the working group, and along the process of public procurement. And there's direct procurement, and now public procurement has been initiated by the LKPP, and that is something that other people can take as an example, meaning people from different sectors and from different levels of government. So from the planning stages, it should start from the planning stages, and then training of and benchmarkings. After trainings, there's nothing else. That's what usually happens. But there needs to be like benchmarking and practice. So training, benchmarking, and practice. So this is from the survey. This is from the research. Oftentimes, the products have technical specifications and nothing else, but actually there are other types of specifications. There's price, there's quantity, there's location, and what is important is level of service. And sometimes, as was mentioned before, purchasing a laptop, but there's no operating system. Why is that? Also, operating system needs to be maintained before they are released. So that's real. And I was taking a peek at a laptop and I found that, oh, this part is not there and that software is not there. And the user needs to make sure that everything is there, from the specification of quality and quantity and other things. But not only that, not just inform the technical specifications, but go further than that. Provide information on the service as well, so people can see that, oh, so this is the need, and people can say, I can only provide this much, so that people are not angry afterwards, except when people say that they can provide everything. And then the packaging and consolidation of strategic goods and services needs. And I think that is one disadvantage, in the fact that people are not able to conduct consolidation. And this is now something that people are promoting, including with LKPP. Consolidate, consolidate, consolidate. They are also consolidating around the government by collaborating with a few ministries and agencies. And I think this is something that they need to do in the local government as well. Procurement is not only some involving LKPP, but the local government as well. The LKPP provides the policies, and they need to provide the system as well, and they also conduct the monitoring. Then the trading is related to the management of supply chains at the LKPP. In the training model, they have added another module, which is the management of supply chain. And even though that is more theoretical, how are people expected to practice it or put it in practice? We are developing that as well, developing what we call, I think we talked about the analysis of the education and training, and we've identified people who might need it, and we want to encourage people to take it. And I think this requires some professional activity. That's why we have a professional sector or section. The last is the working group and assessing prices. Only looking at the lowest price. There's also the value system that is different from just looking at the price. If the goods have a utilization period, you shouldn't only prioritize the unit price. So to place the value system in the procurement system is something that we don't see much. And also the estimated price needs to be adjusted with that approach, as well as the entire structure of goods and services can also be calculated that way. And in the future, products and goods are input into the actor, and if the specification is lacking, then don't choose that one. So before we go into the e-catalog, we should determine the act and the specification first, because if do it like that, then goods and products that don't meet the requirements, that they are not given any slots. So this is also another outcome of the research. The review is not something that was developed, and then there's the negotiation. If we have those guidelines, not only produce them, but we need to socialize them, disseminate them, and implement them. We need to have them be implemented. That's my hope. And then we need to empower APIP as the partners in the implementation of e-catalog procurement system. That means that I need to be competent. Does APIP need to be certified? No, but they need to be smarter than those who are certified. How can we have that? Well, we do that by learning and educating ourselves. For APIP, it's actually pretty easy. If they don't know, they can sit together with the auditee and then learn from it. That is something that is not forbidden. And then they can also sit together with them and then check step by step whether what they're doing is correct or not, and start from practice. So the auditor also needs to do that as well. So to expand their horizon and to add some utilization, we need to have a competition of integrity enforcement model. So they can provide examples. And then the last thing is to provide rewards. So rewards for the small and medium enterprises. Again, not only in monetary terms, but rewards and incentives can also be in form of other things that can motivate people to do things right, do things the right way. So have the integrity enforcement models compete with one another. Coincidentally, when I was at the BPKP, because we had to provide the example, we also developed role models who are the people with good integrity. And in the past, the rewards were overseas study opportunities or things like that. Those are the examples. And when, but when they do violate, then the punishment is more severe. So that's maybe how we can do it. But anyway, this is something that I can prevent. There are so many recommendations here because this is the results of the research. Thank you. Thank you, Iburita. Okay, then I think I'll shift to Ibu Dwi for now. We were talking about regions. It's not just at the central or the national level, but subnational or regional level. They also they are required to implement this as well. From the point of view of policies, I hope that some of you will ask questions. I'm receiving some questions here. I hope you can also ask about the goods and services procurement law, so that I don't have to ask the questions. But how do regional governments see regulations about the procurement of goods and services, including about the transformation of procurement that is now being promoted by LKPP? Yes. So there are two questions there. I hope that we can, at the end or after we go back from this event, all of you can be emissaries, ambassadors of procurement. Procurement of goods and services are done with all our monies from taxes, taxes that we pay. And then that money is then spent by the procurement individuals at the ministries, agencies, and local governments. And what are the outcomes of that? Outcomes are public services, public facilities. How it is appropriate for the funders to participate and to also contribute to marshal the process and to guard the process. They don't need to understand exactly how the process is done, but to give an easy example, let's say, where do you live and eat? So the packaging in 2023, it'll be uh, done in November. The assignment is the maintenance of, let's say, the community health clinics. Let's just check whether the community clinics is maintained, whether there are any renovations or not. So that would be an easy way to monitor. But we do have to remind you that there is a plan for a procurement law. It can change because it is a plan nonetheless, but we can also check whether the plan is changed. So if the local government is to undertake public procurement, they have a plan, but if the plan is changed, they if they change it, they cannot do all the steps of the procurement if they don't have it at the syrup, because our system is designed in such a way that the plan needs to be there and the code needs to be there, and then the code of the RUP needs to be there when they undertake the planning or the procurement process. So if they're checking, why isn't this here? No, maybe this has changed. Of course, change can be made. To give one example, our national budget, it was announced when the budget allocation. So, ladies and gentlemen, the allocation of government spending is announced in the beginning of the year, but the process started in the preceding year in November. Around November, there you can check the allocations. There's already the RUPs for the spending, and let's say in 2023. So the spending for 2024 can already be indicated in the November of 2023, but in the January when the national budget is then adopted in the parliament, there could be some changes, and the RUP can also be checked there. And then from there, you can see all the packages that are going to be organized in different organizations where you live, for example. Just check it out. And secondly, the procurement ambassadors can also start doing that, which is to monitor that. And then about price, you can see whether the roads have been maintained, are there any improvements or not. And then the price. Price is, let's say, it's 5 million products are in key catalogs, but who are going to monitor the prices? Because the prices indicated are provided by the businesses. They put up their prices and specifications. And if there's any markups or any expensive items, just let us know. So the e-catalog for the national level, it's like the e-marketplace for the national level. So actually, it's like an e-marketplace, but for national coverage. So the people can also monitor. Well, in the past, when we had school books, we didn't. The parents would not be aware. Oh, it's this price. We just pay. But now we can actually check the catalog that this is the price per unit, and then the calculation is this much, and when it gets sold to the parents is this much. This is something actually that the people can do as well. So, ladies and gentlemen, again, the ambassadors of procurement is something, it's a role that many different people can do, including members of the public. How can they do that? You can viralize different things, and this is something that they can do. Not only the bad ones, but also the good ones. If you see that there's a good procurement happening where you're based, uh, make it viral. You don't have to always make bad things viral, but also the good things viral. And we need to have a balance between promoting the bad and the good. So our hope is there could be some balance between the coverage and news of the bad things and the good things. And you also have a pre-existing collaboration with people in the media. So if there are bad things, you can publicize that, but also for good ones, you can also do that too. And hopefully we can resolve issues that are reported as well. So that's what it is, ladies and gentlemen, that the being ambassadors and emissaries of procurement is something that can be done by public members of the public. And in terms of procurement, there are three elements there. There's the actors, meaning the purchaser, the buyer, the public, on the government on behalf of the public, and then the provider, which is the business sector, and the user. And all these elements, they need to collaborate, not just coordinate, right? And there's also co-creation, and each of the parties, they have, what did you call it? Yes, contribution. They need to have contribution. They need to have all three. I think the two, and if we can have co-creation, collaboration, and contribution, the expectation is we can create trust. And if we want to be a good government, then the three parties needs to have trust. And if we can arrive at the status of trust, I think we're done. We're done. So all of the parties know one another, they collaborate with one another, they co-create with one another, and they contribute, and we can have trust, and hopefully we can arrive to that point soon. Because if we have a singular data, what else is there? Because everything is now disclosed and transparent, but we still have homework to arrive at that point. There's a lot of things to do there. So 5 minutes. So I think that's from me. In terms of SIRUP, that's that. And if you want to explore more about SIRUP and you want to learn more about SIRUP, we have here our colleague Ibu Yuyu, and we have the capacity building of business actors, and not just them. Actually, people who are observers can also do that. It is a forum where we can enhance our knowledge on procurement, and it's free. And when we're doing that, you can also find it on the website of LKPP. So last point, I also want to present to you some pages here, some web pages. Here, www.lkpp.go.id. There's the Insta, there's the Twitter, there's the phone number. So utilize all these contacts, and if there are questions or comments, if you want to come to our office, you can also do that. We're open until 3 p.m. every day. If you want to consult, there's the office at the Epicentrum. You can also contact us through social media. We are open to the utilization of all of the canals. You can also make everything viral, including this event. Yes, thank you. Ibu Dwi. I am asking for permission from the organizing committee. We might exceed the 5 minutes that was indicated because we still have not had the Q&A. So there are people here that I see are raising their hands to ask questions. Can I start now? Yes, thank you. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you for the panelists. I am Nicholas. I'm from the University of Indonesia. I think we need to see the issues. We've talked about digitalization, and I think digitalization is just an instrument. It's not the goal, because we do need to adapt and to arrive at 4.0. And my question is, I think it was alluded to by the ladies there. It's APIP or APIP. Is it just formality or professionalism? My question is, we want to optimize their role, but their structure is under the head. So they are watchdogs. They are not catalysts. They are not consultants. So how can we optimize the role of APIP when they are not in a position to do that? So APIP seems to only play a role at the latter stages because of their position. My second question is my question is, how can we optimize their role, because they should play a role as catalysts and consultants. So is there any programs and policies by LKPP to optimize them? Because you can and you will intervene into each government and agencies and ministries, and also regulation is not also a measure of success. It's still an instrument to refine the institutionality. Like, even if we have Article 77, doesn't mean that we are going to see the implementation of those regulations. So how do we optimize the role internally, externally, so that they both can be realized, not just having regulation on paper, but we can't implement that in practice in the form of a program. And something that I've gotten from the panelists is to prevent corruption at the procurement sector. Thank you so much, Nicholas. Yes, you, madam. Greetings and may peace be upon you. I am Sri. I'm an activist at the community learning activity, but I'm also collaborating with micro and small and medium enterprises to educate them so that they can also become entrepreneurs. I would like to submit a proposal here whether this is something that can be socialized, because this is a new program, right? Ibu, you said that you have the MOU with ICW and also with IAPI. So maybe we can do it in practice and have no corruption so that they will not be trapped in that situation and they understand the procedures and all the steps and the mechanisms. And I think that is important. The people are really promoting the SMEs, culinary businesses, craft businesses, and stationery. So that's all. I think we can promote, and you can go down from your ivory tower and then go down to the people and then disseminate and socialize that. Thank you and greetings and may peace be upon you. Yes, thank you so much, Ibu Sri. Who would like to ask questions again? Yes. Yes, thank you, moderator. My name is Fitri from ICW. I'd like to ask a question. Actually, not a question, but it's more, maybe not a recommendation. But for the three organizations here represented, we're talking about collaboration. So in the future, in the next years, do you think that the three organizations, that you will have activities that are collaborative in nature, but also engaging the people? So three questions first, perhaps. I think there are a lot of questions directed to Ibu Dwi. Yes, thank you for asking the questions. A lot of young people here. I like that. That means that you're more aware. Because we were wondering whether people are aware of this, but assessing the questions, I'm sure that some of you have better understanding. Now, I'd like to address the question by Nicola. So, in the goods and services procurement, the internal oversight is not something that plays more of a role in the later stages, but in the beginning as well. We have the probity audit, and that's why they provide quality control, and that's actually the role that we are promoting for APIP to take more and more. And in the presentation that I showed, creating the ecosystem also takes the role of the APIP. And in this case, let's say BBKP is one of it, as one of the nurturers of APIP. It's been assigned by that presidential instruction to guard and marshal the process, not only from behind, but from the planning stages, from the selection stages, and the implementation of the contract. APIP is located in all procurement units. So if we talk about the organogram of procurement, that is true. That the implementer, there's the KPA, there's PPA, there's the working group, and so on. APIP plays a role to do quality control of the procurement process, the quality assurance rather. Now, in order to undertake that task, they can do what is called reviews. So every time we come up with a SIRUP, they have to involve the the APIP, and then they need to take part in the process. So that's our task in the ministry and agencies. Whenever we want to come up with a plan, and the plan needs to be reviewed by the APIP first. So the RUP, the general procurement plan as well. And then when they come up with the KAK, they're also reviewed by the APIP. So the quality assurance is something that is done by the internal oversight from the planning stage. So that's how it is in its implementation. And I think it's good. If you are a student, I think you can also do an internship there. We also have internship opportunities for students. So that's the process. And then the second question, policies and tools. So the role of the public is they can submit input into policy formulations, because during the regulatory formulations process, we also consider how the regulation can be implementable, can be enforceable. How can we make sure of that? We also communicate that with the public, and the public can also assess whether this is something that can be implementable. For example, one article. We'll communicate one article to the public, and then people can assess, and people can provide us with input. Oh, this is not implementable, or this is implementable. So we do that with different stakeholders, from the procurer, the supplier, and those who use all the goods and services, the users. And we do that continually, not just do it like from this date to that date. No, we would open that opportunity for many long time. So please look at and check out the LKPP's website. We have there what is called public consultation. Public consultation, all of the input can be submitted there. Through those pages, we open the opportunity simultaneously, not only during in-person forums. And also, Ibu Sri, thank you for your proposal. This is something that we've done because we do have activities to increase or enhance the capacity of business actors. Not only business actors, we also reach, actually the sequence is after we come up with a regulatory formulation, we do disseminate that, socialize that, and that is something we do as a routine, or something that we do routinely. So this activity is something that we do, but I think we need to find a more effective way to do it. For example, to socialize the same thing to youth might entail a different kind of effort or public relations activity that is more efficient. So I think in the manner in which we conduct dissemination uh, can also be refined, because we've been doing it more formally, and maybe it's not something that is more relaxed and flowing in terms of the back and forth, and I think we need to do things more in a more contemporary manner. So thank you for your input, and also Mbak Fitri provided us with a lot of input regarding also socialization, I think, and that's something that we will. Oh yes, yes, the collaboration. Yes, very much so. So we do have a program for that from actually the Dexathon thing. It's also something that we do, monitoring that is constant and continuous. That's just one example of one activity that we do collaboratively, and the open tender, sorry, opentender.net, that's one thing, something that we can still do. And then the collaborations that are enriching or capacity building in nature. Yes, we actually have an application which is Bisa Pengadaan, business information, that actually targeting suppliers. The programs such as capacity building of businesses and proving the business opportunities are also things that we do together with development partners to look for opportunities to participate in international tenders. So the businesses that we've successfully invited to take part in the e-catalogs, and after we deem them to be competitive enough, we can include them in more international bidding processes. So opening up opportunities for them to take part in international processes, and hopefully they can incentivize businesses to take part. And this is something that we can also do together. If ICW has data, because it's difficult to find businesses, where are they? We've gone to the local offices that cater or interact with businesses. We haven't found many of them. We have collaborated with the SMEs because to invite them, we need to be clear. We can't do like an open invitation. We have to be targeted. We have to invite individual businesses. We have to have their names, their emails, because that's the way we do it. We do it by email. It's not an open call. Like, please take part in this or that. And I don't think that would be appropriate. And that's why we need data. So if the question is, what can we do? We can do a lot together, but let's look at the data of businesses. Maybe ICW has data on that. If you don't have data on businesses, maybe Ibu Sri, you also mentioned that you coordinate a group of businesses, and this is something that you do. So that means that you have data on who they are. And if you have data on that, we can collaborate. Yes, you can do that with sub-districts or provincial levels. Yes, we can do that as well, because one thing that we also try to do is to invite people to collaborate, which who are businesses who haven't been informed and identified. That's pretty much it. Thank you, Dewi. Yes, thank you. I'll give the opportunity for one more question. Wait, I think I'd like to add to uh, response for Nicholas, and I think this is about mindset. And IPIP is within, and it's they play only a watchdog role. I think watchdog role is something that they do in the 1970s. Now they don't do that anymore. They're not a watchdog. And I think they can nudge the leadership, saying that, oh, we're deviating, and that's what I did at the BKP when I was appointed as the IPIP. I asked the leadership, sir, what kind of role do you want me to take? Do you want me to take the role only at the end? I'll just resign right here and now. And then he said, no, Iburita, you need to provide input for me if I am making any mistakes. So there needs to have uh, communication, because in the internal auditor standards, and I'm still an internal auditor, I still teach about internal audit, I still take part in internal audit discussions, and at the international, at the global level, we can't have APIP externally. It's the internal auditors. That means that it needs to be inside. Now, if you look at yourself in the mirror, can you see what's behind you? Of course not. What people can see behind you is the APIP. Oh, it's maybe there's a kick, there's a twist behind you. So they are providing input for improvements. Improvements for what? So that they can have better organizational value. They can be better. They can be more transparent. They can be more accountable. If they're only playing a watchdog role, the dog, if you see a dog, the dog is outside of the house. They only bark when people are trying to come in. And so that's not what the APIP is for, and it's not their role. So the standard is not for APIP to be external of the organization. And that's why, let me share with you a story in the Ministry of Finance. There's 5DG, including the oversight of state finances, and I was part of that. And when we had a discussion about internal auditor, do you know that there's the Inspector General? Now we have double. So we have the Inspector General and the DG of Oversight. So the DG of Financial Audit was then um, put externally outside of the Ministry of Finance as BBKP, because they oversee the president, and because all the inspectorate They exist in all the ministries and agencies, but who oversees the presidency? It's BPKP, and that's why we have the internal auditors. And this is something that I emphasize. A lot of people have this perspective. People are still talking about people are still asking, why are the internal auditors still inside? But that's what they do. They are internal, so that's some additional information so that we don't have misunderstandings, because this is something that a question that I can respond at this moment in time, so I'll do that instead. Any other questions? One more question from offline or any online questions, perhaps? Anybody from Zoom or anybody from YouTube? Okay, last question. Go ahead, sir. Yes, thank you. I am Iksan. I am assigned in Jakarta for the time being. I'm not from here, and I'm attending this event. I am the Secretary General of EIP of North Maluku. Yes, today's activity is part of our contribution of how we can prevent and mitigate corruption in the sector of public procurement. And this is our commitment, and eradicating corruption is not something that each of the organizations can do individually, but it's something that we need to do in collaboration with one another and with other stakeholders and with civil society like ICW and other NGOs who would be able to collaborate in these efforts to mitigate and handle corruption. For us in North Maluku, for us at IAPI, we are encouraging for a branch to be set up because the regulation at the central or national level has changed, that the competence testing needs to involve those that are certified. So we're now formulating and we're preparing all the necessary requirements, and hopefully we can do that not too far in the future. And one district has budgeted for 30 civil servants to take part in the competency testing in procurement. If they want to participate and others as well, that's something that we can do as well. And we want to facilitate people, participants from one district in the province of North Maluku. So that's something that we can contribute and a small scale. So that's all from us. Thank you, and may peace be upon you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Exas. This is actually giving more encouragement to the capacity building, especially for everyone who have the knowledge about the procurement, not just the accreditation, but also certifications, not just by national, not just, well, Indonesia, it's not just Jakarta, but it's exactly spread out in event throughout the archipelagos. So I would like to close the questions and answer sessions as being completed by the committee, like Ms. Dewi. It's overtime. I would like to ask one more Guinness of the panelists to give closing statement. Ibu Dwi, Ibu Rita, and Ms. Wana. Yes, thank you, Ms. Dewi. I agree that in terms of the procurement, we need a very excellent collaboration from the three elements. Therefore, there's no other words that we need to start to collaborate and co-creations together. And each of us have our own rules and has been explained comprehensively from up to down, down to up. So we need to continue. We need to proceed as well. basically utilize all of the tools, all of the activities that I've shared with everyone today. We're going to wait for you. My office located in Epicentrum. Let's do the job after this event. Thank you so much. That will be from me. Okay, Ibu Rita. Related with the human capital, Mrs. Dewi, so my message is clear. First, upgrading the competences. Second, professionalism's implementations and enforce the integrity with the transparent and accountable implementations. And the integrity to ensuring Indonesia go international. Thank you. Yes, so the last word from ICW. I would like to address this message. At the moment, we are discussing or related about the formulations of the line regulations, especially related to the procurement, not just national domestic level, but also international level. Fitra was doing this advisory and input and feedback process, not just from the CSO, but we invite the involvement from the SMEs and then the academias, and not just giving input, but also critics and suggestions. And lastly, ICW opening the channel for reporting related with the procurement. I'll be able to log in into the opentender.net if you are appealing or you would like to be involved in the monitoring. We're able to do or conduct collaboration as well and provide trainings related to the investigations process. Thank you so much to our panelists, spokesperson, the highest gratitude to all distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, and participants that are joining us offline and online within the Zoom platform. I take a notes. That's a few of important points. Basically, allow me a couple of seconds to address or to share this highlights. We know the data are scattered. We know that every sources have data, and at the moment we are trying our best to integrate everything, and we could make it into under one umbrella. It's able to be accessed for health and all of the sectors. Related to the capacity building, improvement of the human capital, we need to provide the best education to the public, more society community participation, so more opportunity and access for everyone, and safe reporting process and settlement as well. And related to our faith, it's very important to have their collaboration and the role and ensuring that every one of the stakeholders are competent. Our today discussions I believe that we are absorbing a lot of enlightenment knowledge. I have a lot of notes over here. If I could repeat or summarizing what the informations, what Pak Bogat or Mr. Bogat shared with us, that the efficiency saving of the national lives will be 12%. It's one of the positive impact from the collaboration of the technical ministry and the involvement of the organization, institutions, and also CSO. We hope in the future we could improve the achievement as well, and then it's become the evidence base to be considered on the formulation of the next policy, and like one data integrations, and then on the collaboration of the implementations or action plan in the field. We could also accelerate or improve this together. This will be the MOU signed by LKPP, ICW, and IAPI or IAPI, the fifth MOU. We've always renew or also doing monitoring and follow up or evaluations. What exactly we need to add? We take a note. So we have improving the human capital capacity building. There will be something that we improve, not just coming from the LKPP, ICW, and also IAPI, but every one of us have important role in these actions, because I also surprised that the young generation or the academias were having such a interest in this matter of procurement. And for you college students from the university, related to this more now for the monitoring evaluation, strengthen their participations, and also improving or encourage the public participations. That will be from me. Basically, accept my highest apology because I perhaps prolong this discussion panel sessions. We hope that our today discussion giving the best comprehensive knowledge and benefits for all of us. We have for participants that joining the Q&A, we have a reward for you. We're going to give a present. So our committee organizer will um, give that reward to you. I will give the floor back to the Master of Ceremony, Mr. Miguel. So thank you so much, Mrs. Dewi Anggraini and our amazing three panelists. And thank you for giving the closing. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, by the end of our today's panel discussions, this officially closed the MOU signing and panel discussion that being organized by Open Government Indonesia's ICW, LKPP, and EAPI or IAPI. Thank you so much for attending this session since the noontime and since the morning. I know that the RGI, we have Open Government Week, or you could join and follow for tomorrow and the next day after tomorrow. So thank you so much. Good afternoon and wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. May peace be upon all of us. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much. We are the interpreter representing Lexico, asking permission to leave the Zoom floor. Thank you very much.